Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to watch them shatter your heart? This is the story of my wife, her betrayal, her cruelty, and the one question that haunts me to this day. Darling, do you want to know what I did? Stick around, because the ending will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty. It started with a simple conversation that spiraled into chaos. "John, I'm going to the company's New Year's party on Friday," Emily said casually while scrolling through her phone. Her tone was nonchalant, as if my feelings didn't matter. I clenched my fists under the table, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought we agreed you wouldn't go. You know how I feel about it." She glanced up, her blue eyes sharp as daggers. "John, it's just a party. Everyone's going to be there. Do you want me to look like some submissive housewife who needs permission to leave the house?" I swallowed hard. This wasn't the first time she'd thrown that accusation at me. "It's not about control, Emily. I don't trust some of the people there. You've told me yourself how flirty that guy, Mark, is with you." She laughed, a cold, bitter sound that cut through me. "Mark? Are you seriously jealous of Mark? Maybe if you were more confident, you wouldn't feel so threatened by other men." The words stung, but I refused to give in. "I'm asking you to think about us, to respect what I'm saying." Emily stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Respect? Don't make me laugh, John. Respect is earned." With that, she stormed out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the suffocating silence. I sat there for hours, replaying the conversation in my mind. Had I overreacted? Or was I justified in wanting her to stay? I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about the party. It was about something deeper, something broken between us. Friday arrived, and Emily was as determined as ever. She stepped out of the bedroom in a sleek black dress, her makeup flawless. My heart sank. "Emily, please don't go," I pleaded one last time. She didn't even look at me. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." And with that, she walked out the door, leaving me drowning in a sea of doubts and insecurities. The door closed with a soft click, but the sound reverberated in my mind like a thunderclap. Emily was gone, and the quiet of the house was deafening. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, hoping for a message, a call, anything to prove that she was thinking about me, about us. The hours crept by. Midnight came and went. I had texted her twice, keeping my words calm and measured. "Hey, hope you're having fun. Just let me know when you'll be home." An hour later, "Emily, are you okay? Haven't heard from you." No response. The quiet turned to agony as my mind began to spin. Was she with Mark? Were they laughing together, drinking, dancing too close? My imagination painted pictures I didn't want to see, each one darker than the last. I tried to distract myself. I turned on the TV, flipping through channels without paying attention. I grabbed a beer, hoping it would take the edge off, but it didn't. I even paced the house, room to room, like a ghost haunting its own home. But nothing worked. The silence was alive, wrapping around me like a noose. By 3 a.m., worry turned to anger. How could she do this? How could she leave me here, knowing how I felt, and not even have the decency to send a message? I dialed her number again, straight to voicemail. I left a message this time, my voice trembling between frustration and desperation. "Emily, it's late. I just need to know you're okay. Please call me." As the clock struck 4 a.m., I gave up. Exhausted, I sank into the couch, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. Was this my fault? Had I driven her away? Or was this who she truly was? A woman who thrived on pushing me to my breaking point? The night dragged on, every sound in the house amplified by the stillness. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards, the ticking of the clock, and the absence of her. An emptiness that filled every corner. I didn't sleep, couldn't. My heart pounded too hard, and my thoughts were too loud. By the time the first light of dawn broke through the windows, my worry had morphed into something else entirely. It was no longer just about her safety. It was about the growing realization that this night, this silence, might change everything. And then, Just as I was beginning to convince myself that I didn't care anymore, I heard it, a soft knock on the door. The knock was faint but deliberate. For a moment I thought I imagined it. My head was a foggy mess from the sleepless night, but then it came again, 3 soft raps on the door. My heart leapt, and I was on my feet before I even realized it. I stumbled toward the door, my emotions a chaotic storm of relief, anger, and confusion. She was here. Emily was home. But why hadn't she used her key? I pulled the door open, and there she stood, leaning casually against the frame as if nothing had happened. Her black dress was wrinkled, her makeup smudged, and her hair was a tangled mess. The sight of her, disheveled and unapologetic, made my stomach churn. "Emily?" I said, my voice low and strained. "Where the hell have you been?" She smirked, a small, infuriating smile that didn't belong on the face of someone who had been missing all night. "Relax, John. I was at the party." Her nonchalance sent a surge of anger through me. "The party ended hours ago. I've been calling, texting. Do you have any idea what you've put me through?" She waved a hand dismissively, brushing past me into the house. The faint scent of alcohol and something else, something unfamiliar, lingered in the air as she moved. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. I stayed with some coworkers. It's not a big deal." I shut the door behind her, my hands shaking. "Not a big deal? You didn't think to call me? To let me know you were okay?" She turned to face me, a glint of amusement in her tired eyes. "John, you worry too much. It's suffocating, you know? Maybe you should learn to trust me." "Trust you?" I said, my voice rising. "You've done nothing but give me reasons not to." Her smirk widened into a grin that made my blood boil. And then she said it, the words that would replay in my mind for weeks, months, maybe years. "Darling," she purred, tilting her head as if savoring the moment. "Do you want to know what I did?" Time seemed to stop. My chest tightened, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. Her tone was playful, almost mocking, as though she was daring me to ask. "What are you talking about?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Just thought you'd like to know. Or maybe you wouldn't. Who knows?" The room felt like it was closing in around me. My mind raced, trying to decode her words, her tone, her smirk. Was she toying with me? Or was this her way of confessing something she didn't have the courage to say outright? I took a step closer, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "Emily, if you have something to tell me, just say it. Stop playing games." Her smirk faded, replaced by a look of boredom. "Oh, John, you're exhausting." She brushed past me again, heading for the bedroom. "I need a shower. We'll talk later, if there's anything worth talking about." I stood there, frozen in place, as I listened to the sound of the bathroom door closing and the water running. My mind was a battlefield of emotions. Anger, hurt, betrayal. But one thought rose above the rest. Something was terribly wrong. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the closed bathroom door. The sound of the running water echoed through the house, but it couldn't drown out the storm inside me. My wife, my Emily, had just walked in after disappearing all night, smug and unapologetic, leaving me with a single haunting question. "Do you want to know what I did?" My mind wouldn't stop racing. Was she testing me? Did she want me to push? Or was she taunting me, knowing I didn't have the courage to demand answers? Every moment of our marriage seemed to flash before me, each one tainted now by the shadow of doubt. When the water finally shut off, I was still standing there, rooted to the spot. Emily emerged a few minutes later, wrapped in a towel, her wet hair clinging to her shoulders. She glanced at me, her expression unreadable. "You're still standing there?" she asked, her voice light, almost teasing. I felt my jaw tighten. "We need to talk, Emily." She rolled her eyes and disappeared into the bedroom. "Not now, John. I'm exhausted." "No," I said, following her. My voice was firm, though my hands trembled. "You don't get to walk away from this. Not after what you said." She threw the towel onto a chair and began rummaging through the closet for clothes. "What exactly did I say that has you so worked up? Enlighten me." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. That question, Emily, the one you asked at the door. Do you want to know what I did? What did you mean by that? She paused, her back to me, and for a moment I thought she might finally give me an answer. But when she turned around, her face was calm, even amused. John, you overthink everything. I was just messing with you. You're so easy to rile up. You know that? Her dismissal hit me like a slap. This isn't a joke, Emily. I spent the entire night wondering where you were. Worried sick. And now you're telling me it was all just a game. She sighed dramatically, as if she were the one being wronged. You're being so paranoid. I told you, I stayed with coworkers after the party. Nothing happened. Then why didn't you call? Why didn't you answer my texts? Her eyes narrowed, and her tone turned icy. Because I didn't feel like dealing with your insecurities, John. Do you know how exhausting it is to be married to someone who questions my every move? The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My insecurities? As if she hadn't spent months, years, tearing me down, comparing me to other men, making me feel like I was never enough. I'm not the problem here, Emily, I said, my voice shaking. You are. You've been pushing me away for months, treating me like I'm some obstacle in your life. And now this? Disappearing all night and refusing to explain yourself. Her face hardened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually show remorse. But instead, she shrugged. Believe whatever you want, John. I don't have time for this. She grabbed her clothes and walked back into the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, staring at the closed door, the weight of her words pressing down on me. My insecurities, my paranoia. She turned it all back on me, as if I was the one destroying our marriage. But deep down, I knew the truth. The cracks in her mask were starting to show, and the woman I had loved, the woman I thought I knew, was slipping away, revealing someone else entirely. Someone I wasn't sure I could ever trust again. The house was suffocatingly quiet after Emily's retreat to the bathroom. I could hear the faint rustle of her movements as she dressed, but it felt like she was a million miles away. My chest felt heavy, my mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Rage, heartbreak, confusion. I paced the living room, my thoughts spiraling. How had it come to this? We used to laugh together, talk for hours about everything and nothing. I used to look at her and feel like the luckiest man alive. But now, every glance, every word out of her mouth, felt like a calculated move to hurt me, to test how much I could take before I broke. When Emily finally emerged, she was dressed casually, her hair tied back in a loose bun. She looked like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just shattered my trust and walked away from the pieces. I'm going out, she announced, grabbing her purse from the counter. I stared at her, stunned. You just got home. And now I'm leaving again, she said, her tone flat. I need space, John. Something you clearly don't understand. The audacity of her words left me speechless. Emily, we need to talk. We can't keep ignoring this, whatever this is between us. She sighed, exasperated. You're impossible. Fine, let's talk. What do you want me to say? That I regret going to the party? That I'm sorry for staying out? Would that make you happy? It's not about me being happy, I said, my voice rising. It's about respect. It's about honesty. Do you even care how I feel anymore? Her expression didn't change. If anything, she looked bored. Of course I care, John. But you're so wrapped up in your own insecurities that you can't see past them. There it was again, her favorite weapon. My insecurities. She wielded them like a knife, cutting deeper with every word. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the surge of anger threatening to consume me. This isn't about me, Emily. This is about you. About the way you've been treating me. The way you've been acting like our marriage is some kind of inconvenience to you. She crossed her arms, her eyes cold. Maybe it is. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. My heart sank, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. You don't mean that, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged. I don't know what I mean anymore, John. All I know is that I can't keep living like this, feeling trapped, suffocated by your constant need for validation. Her words hit me harder than any physical blow ever could. Trapped. Suffocated. Was that really how she saw our marriage? Emily slung her purse over her shoulder and walked toward the door. I need space. Don't wait up. I didn't try to stop her this time. I didn't have the strength. The door closed behind her, and I was alone again, left to pick up the pieces of yet another fight. But this time felt different. This time it felt final. As I sat on the couch, staring at the empty room, a cold realization crept over me. I was fighting a battle I'd already lost. The hours dragged on after Emily left, each minute stretching into an eternity. I stared at the walls of our home, the place that once felt like a sanctuary now resembling a prison. Every corner of the room reminded me of her laugh, her smile, the warmth she used to bring. But those memories felt like they belonged to someone else, a version of Emily I hadn't seen in months. I replayed our fight in my mind, dissecting every word she had said, searching for meaning beneath the surface. Trapped, suffocated. Was that really how she felt? Or was it just another excuse, another way to deflect blame and make me question myself? The more I thought about it, the more the cracks in her story became impossible to ignore. Why had she stayed out all night? Why hadn't she answered her phone? And why had she come home with that smug, almost taunting attitude? The question she'd asked me at the door echoed in my mind like a sinister whisper. Do you want to know what I did? I wanted to dismiss it as a cruel joke, but the way she'd said it, the glint in her eye, the slight curl of her lips, made it impossible to shake the feeling that she was hiding something. Something that would destroy me if I ever found out. I couldn't sit still. The silence of the house was unbearable, every creak and groan of the floorboards amplifying the emptiness inside me. I grabbed my phone, scrolling aimlessly through my messages with her. Most were mundane, grocery lists, reminders about appointments, the occasional love you text from weeks ago. But the last few days were different. The tone of her messages had changed, becoming shorter, colder. I noticed the absence of emojis, the lack of warmth in her words. It was subtle, but it was there. I opened my call log, staring at the unanswered calls from the night before. Each one felt like a dagger in my chest. Desperate for answers, I opened her social media profiles. Emily was always meticulous about her online presence, posting carefully curated pictures of our life together. But lately, even that had shifted. Her recent posts were all about her. Selfies at work, pictures with her coworkers, captions that hinted at independence and freedom. One post stood out. It was from the night of the party. A picture of her and a group of coworkers, all smiling and holding glasses of champagne. She looked radiant, her arm casually draped around Mark, the man she had dismissed as harmless. My stomach churned. Was I reading too much into it? Or was this a glimpse of the truth she refused to share with me? As the hours passed, my emotions oscillated between anger and despair. I hated her for what she was doing to me, for the way she made me doubt myself, but I also hated how much I still loved her. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway jolted me from my thoughts. My heart raced as I peeked through the blinds, half expecting to see Emily returning home. But it wasn't her car. It was Mark's. I froze, my mind scrambling to make sense of what I was seeing. Mark stepped out of the car, his confident stride and casual demeanor sending a chill down my spine. He walked up to the door, hesitating for a moment before knocking. I didn't move, couldn't. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. He knocked again, louder this time. "John? You home?" he called, his voice muffled through the door. Why was he here? What did he want? My instincts told me to open the door, to confront him, to demand answers. But a part of me, the part that was already broken, was too afraid of what he might say. So I stayed frozen, watching from behind the blinds as Mark stood there for a few more moments before walking back to his car. As his taillights disappeared down the street, I felt a sense of dread settle over me. This wasn't just my imagination. Something was happening, something I couldn't ignore anymore. Emily was slipping away from me, and I was running out of time to figure out why. The sight of Mark standing at my door haunted me long after he drove away. His visit wasn't random, it couldn't be. The man Emily had so often dismissed, the one she claimed was just a harmless coworker, had appeared at my home unannounced, like a shadow following her lies. I sat on the couch, gripping my phone, debating whether to confront her immediately. My instincts screamed for answers, but a gnawing fear held me back. If I pushed too hard, would she leave for good? Was I ready to face the truth, no matter how devastating it might be? Hours passed before Emily returned. The sound of her keys jingling at the door made my stomach twist. She walked in, her face calm, almost serene, as if nothing had happened. "Hey," she said casually, dropping her purse on the counter. I couldn't take it anymore. Mark was here. Her head snapped toward me, her eyes narrowing. For the first time in weeks, I saw a crack in her composure. "What are you talking about?" "Mark," I repeated, standing up to face her. "He came to the house, knocked on the door, called my name." She hesitated for a split second, just long enough for me to catch it. "That's weird," she said, shrugging. "Maybe he had the wrong address." "Don't lie to me, Emily," I snapped. "I know something's going on. Just tell me the truth." Her expression hardened, her voice laced with irritation. "You're imagining things again, John. Mark probably needed something from work. Why are you making this into a big deal?" "Because it is a big deal," I shot back, my voice trembling with frustration. "You disappear all night, you refuse to explain yourself, and now your so-called harmless coworker is showing up at our house? Do you think I'm stupid?" She folded her arms, her posture defensive. "You're being ridiculous. Mark and I are friends. That's all. If you can't handle that, it's your problem, not mine." Her deflection only fueled my anger. "Friends don't show up at each other's homes unannounced, Emily. And they certainly don't make cryptic comments like, 'Do you want to know what I did? What are you hiding?'" Her eyes flashed with anger, but beneath it, I saw something else, fear. "You're insane," she hissed. "Do you even hear yourself? You're paranoid, John. Always have been. That's why we're in this mess." "No," I said firmly. "We're in this mess because you stopped being honest. You stopped caring about us." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging between us. For a moment, I thought she might finally break, might finally tell me the truth. But instead, she turned on her heel and headed for the bedroom. "I'm done with this conversation," she said coldly. I followed her, my voice rising with desperation. "You can't keep running away, Emily. If there's something you need to say, just say it." She slammed the bedroom door in my face, shutting me out completely. I stood there, my heart pounding, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. The Emily I loved, the woman who once made me feel like the center of her world, was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. And for the first time, I began to wonder if she had ever truly been the person I thought she was. The days that followed felt like an endless stretch of cold distance between us. Emily's silence was deafening, each word she spoke like a sharp, deliberate jab. She continued to go out more often, leaving me behind with nothing but my thoughts and a growing sense of dread. It was as if she was trying to escape me, escape everything we had once shared. When she came home, there were no apologies, no explanations, just empty glances and a cold shoulder. I tried to start a conversation, to ask her what was happening, but she would shut me down with a dismissive wave or an excuse. The cracks in our marriage deepened. I began to notice things I hadn't before, small signs of detachment. She no longer wore her wedding ring, and when I would try to touch her, she would recoil slightly, as if my very presence bothered her. One night, I waited for her to return from whatever outing she was on. The clock ticked away as the hours passed, each one adding to the weight on my chest. When she finally came through the door, she barely acknowledged me. "Hey," she muttered, tossing her keys onto the counter. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice cracking with frustration. She looked at me with cold, tired eyes. "Not now, John. I'm tired." "Tired," I repeated, the bitterness in my voice rising. "You're tired of me. That's what this is, isn't it? You're done." Her expression flickered for a moment, but she quickly masked it with indifference. "I don't know what you want from me, John. I've told you everything's fine." "Fine," I scoffed. "You've been distant. You've been avoiding me, and now you won't even talk to me about what's going on." She shrugged, a nonchalant gesture that made my blood boil. "Maybe we're just not meant to be, John. Have you ever considered that?" Her words hit harder than any physical blow. Maybe we weren't meant to be. Maybe I had been holding on to something that was already slipping through my fingers. "Is this really how you want to end things?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily didn't answer. Instead, she turned away, disappearing into the bedroom once again. And I was left standing in the empty silence, a broken man questioning everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. I couldn't do it anymore. The silent treatment, the endless excuses, the avoidance. It was eating me alive. I had spent days, weeks, trying to piece together what was left of us. But every time I reached out, I was met with rejection. That night, as Emily walked through the door after another one of her late nights, I made up my mind. No more running from the truth. No more pretending everything was okay. I couldn't live in this limbo any longer. "Emily," I said firmly, as she passed by me without even a glance. She stopped, her shoulders stiffening. "What now, John?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "We need to talk. Really talk. Not this silence anymore." She sighed heavily and looked at me as if I were some inconvenience she couldn't avoid. "What is there to talk about, John? It's clear you're unhappy." "I'm unhappy. Maybe we should just face facts and move on." The words hit me like a slap, but I refused to back down. "Is that it? After everything we've been through, you just want to walk away without any real explanation?" She turned to face me, her eyes flashing with something I couldn't quite place. "I don't owe you an explanation, John. I'm done. I don't love you the way I used to, and I can't keep pretending that I do." Each word she spoke shattered me more than the last. I had been holding onto a ghost, a version of Emily that no longer existed. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone who seemed willing to toss it all away without a second thought. "Is it Mark?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Is that who you've been with?" Her eyes darkened, and she crossed her arms defensively. "It's not what you think, John." "Then what is it, Emily? What's going on? Why are you treating me like this?" She let out a frustrated breath, running a hand through her hair. "You want the truth? Fine. I've been trying to get away from you, from this relationship. It's suffocating. I don't need your constant questioning, your insecurities. I need space. I need freedom." The words were like a knife to my chest. She had been so sure, so cold in her delivery, that I couldn't even argue anymore. "So what now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You're just going to leave?" She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked at me, really looked at me, as though she were seeing me for the first time in a long time. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "I don't know, John," she said quietly. "Maybe I already have." And just like that, everything between us, all the years, all the memories, seemed to evaporate into thin air. I stood there, frozen, as Emily turned away and walked into the bedroom, leaving me with nothing but the echoes of her words. I had lost her, and worse, I had lost myself somewhere along the way. The following days felt like a slow descent into darkness. Emily's presence in the house was now a reminder of everything I had lost. We barely spoke. The tension between us was suffocating, and each time I tried to engage with her, she either shut me down or ignored me completely. The silence was deafening. There was no more warmth in the house, no more laughter or light, just cold, uncomfortable stillness. One morning, I woke up to find her already gone. Her side of the bed was empty, the sheets cold and untouched. I tried to call her, but as expected, she didn't answer. I sat in the kitchen, the loneliness wrapping itself around me like a vice. The hours ticked by, each one heavier than the last. I was exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically. It felt like I had been holding on to a thread that was unraveling, piece by piece. And then, as I sat there spiraling, I saw it. On the table beside my phone was a piece of paper, a letter. My heart raced as I picked it up, my fingers trembling. I knew it was from Emily. I opened it slowly, my hands shaking. The words on the page blurred together as I tried to read them through the haze of panic and dread. John, I can't keep pretending. I've fallen out of love with you, and I can't stay in this marriage anymore. I've been seeing someone else, and it's not fair to you. I know this will hurt you, but I think it's time for us to go our separate ways. Please don't try to find me. I need to do this for myself. Goodbye. The words hit me like a freight train. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, I couldn't move. I felt as though the ground beneath me had just vanished. Emily had already made up her mind. She had already decided to leave, to end it all, and I had nothing left to hold on to. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The pain was so sharp, so raw, it felt like I had been torn in two. She was gone, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. I folded the letter, my hands clumsy, and tossed it aside. My chest tightened, and tears blurred my vision. I had failed. I had loved her so much, tried so hard to make it work, but it wasn't enough. She had moved on without me, and I was left in the wreckage of what we used to have. I didn't know how long I sat there, staring at the empty space where Emily's presence used to be. The house felt even more empty now, colder somehow, as if it was mourning her absence too. And just like that, the reality of my situation hit me. I was alone, completely alone. I couldn't let it end like this. The letter, her cold words, the finality of it, it was too much. I had to find her, to make her understand. I spent hours driving around, calling her, sending message after message, but nothing. My mind was a blur of frantic thoughts, desperately clinging to hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd change her mind. Finally, I found her apartment. It wasn't far from the city, a place I hadn't even known she'd been looking at. I knocked, my heart hammering in my chest. She opened the door, surprised to see me. "John, what are you doing here?" "Please, Emily," I said, my voice breaking. "We need to talk. I can't lose you." She stepped back, her eyes cold. "You already have." And just like that, I realized that nothing I said could change what had already happened. She was gone. I left her apartment feeling hollow, like a part of me had been ripped out and replaced with a void. The world around me seemed muted, as if I were moving through a dream I couldn't wake up from. Days passed, and I tried to fill the emptiness with anything I could. Work, friends, distractions, but nothing worked. The pain was constant, gnawing at me from the inside. The worst part was the silence. No more texts, no more calls. Emily was truly gone, and every attempt I made to reach out only pushed her further away. I sat in our old living room one night, staring at the space where we used to talk, laugh, make plans. The memories of us, now nothing more than ghosts, haunted the walls. And I realized something. She wasn't coming back. It had been weeks since Emily left. I hadn't heard from her, and I'd stopped trying to reach out. The silence was deafening, but I had come to accept it. I needed to face the truth. She was gone, and she wasn't coming back. I began going through our things, packing away the remnants of what once was. Photos, souvenirs from trips we'd taken, little gifts she had given me over the years. Each item felt like a stab to my chest, a reminder of everything I had lost. One day, I came across a letter, not from Emily, but from Mark. It was an old birthday card I hadn't noticed before, tucked away in a drawer. The message was casual, nothing more than a friendly note. But the signature, "Love, Mark," sent a chill through me. I wasn't ready to admit it, but deep down, I knew the truth. She had already moved on with him. I knew it was time to stop torturing myself. I had to let go, no matter how hard it was. Emily had made her choice, and it wasn't me. The realization stung every time I thought about it. But the pain was a cruel teacher, forcing me to accept the inevitable. I decided to pack my things and move out of the house. It felt like a betrayal, abandoning the place we had once shared. But I couldn't stay there, not with the memories haunting every corner. On my last night, I sat in the living room, staring at the walls, remembering the good times, before the arguments, before the silence, before everything fell apart. It was hard to reconcile the woman I loved with the one who had walked away without a second thought. I closed the door behind me for the last time, And as I drove away, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. The days that followed were a blur of confusion, sadness, and self-reflection. I had left the house, but the weight of everything still lingered. The loss wasn't just about Emily. It was about who I had become in the process. I had lost myself trying to hold on to something that was slipping away, something I couldn't fix. I started to rebuild piece by piece. It wasn't easy. I saw a therapist, spent time with friends who reminded me who I used to be before all of this. Slowly, I began to find bits of myself again. The man who wasn't defined by his relationship, the man who had dreams, goals, and a future ahead of him. One that didn't include Emily. One day, I found myself walking down a street I used to frequent with her. For a brief moment, I thought I saw her, but it wasn't her. It was just a reminder. She was part of my past now, not my future. As I let go of the bitterness, the anger faded too. I realized that life had to move forward, with or without the people who once played a major role in it. And so I did. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. This story wasn't just about betrayal or heartbreak, but about finding the strength to move forward, even when it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. It's about realizing that sometimes the hardest lessons in life come with the deepest pain, but they also bring the greatest opportunities for growth. Maybe you've been through something similar, or maybe you're still going through it. Losing someone you love can feel like losing yourself, but trust me when I say this. You are not defined by the people who walk away. You are defined by how you rise after they leave. And though it may seem impossible at first, there is a future beyond the hurt. If this story resonated with you, I want to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a betrayal like this? Or perhaps a painful breakup that left you questioning everything? I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Whether it's a story of heartbreak or hope, every story matters. Remember, the road to healing isn't easy, but it's worth it. Every small step you take toward recovery is a victory, no matter how insignificant it may seem. If you're struggling right now, know that you are not alone. Reach out, lean on those around you, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And if this video helped you reflect, or if you found some comfort or clarity in these words, don't forget to like and share it with someone who might need to hear this. Maybe someone who's also feeling stuck, lost, or uncertain about their own journey. You never know who might need to hear that there is hope after the hardest chapters. Make sure to subscribe as well so you don't miss out on more content like this. Life is full of twists and turns, and we never know what the next chapter holds. But one thing's for sure, we have the power to shape our own stories, no matter how broken they might seem. Thank you again for watching. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and always keep moving forward. And remember, no matter how dark the night may feel, the dawn is always just around the corner.